I'm remembering some important things that I had forgotten. In regards to acceptance, and in regards to pain. And the first one is what accepting actually means. I had been struggling with it because I had forgotten how it works. The acceptance of something is not actually to do with the acceptance of that thing. So the acceptance of suffering, for example, is really not possible. We really can't accept the totality of suffering. It's too much. There's too much there that is too big of a weight. And there's too much tied to it. All of the stories of suffering. To try to accept suffering is different from accepting the existence of it. The existence of suffering. Or better yet, in this moment, the present. There is a tremendous difference between accepting suffering and accepting that suffering is present. Because presence cannot be argued with. Presence doesn't have a story attached. To accept the presence of suffering is simply to look and see, in this moment, is suffering present? And it is a simple yes or no answer. And it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything about the nature of suffering. It doesn't mean anything about the future of it. It does not extend in any way beyond this moment. To see that suffering is present right now, really what you are doing is accepting the presence of the thing. The surface level, the story of the thing, the connotations, the context even in which this is appearing, that is too much and it's too malleable and it is too far from anything rigid enough to be accepted. Where I was struggling in accepting suffering was feeling that I don't like this and I don't want this, and in accepting suffering it feels like I am settling. There's some sort of story attached that is saying suffering will never end. Perhaps suffering will never end. Perhaps suffering can never end. Perhaps suffering will continue forever. Perhaps there's some, necessary evil in this. These are the stories, the words that were happening in my mind. When I've spoken of suffering in the past, I have been talking about the presence of it. The presence is a friend. The presence is exactly what it says. It's revealing that while on the surface everything is exactly what it is, beneath that surface there is only presence. And there is no pain in presence. There is no judgment in it. There's no weight there. There's no argumentation. Presence isn't trying to prove a point. It's not telling you anything about the world, about yourself. It isn't projecting. It's not casting a shadow. It's not sending some kind of message. It's just here. And by realizing that suffering is present, suffering can be accepted as present, that which is present. So it's not the acceptance of suffering, it's the acceptance that suffering is in this moment. Everything that is in this moment. It pulls you back into the now. You can't accept what isn't here, and in your acceptance of what is here, you realign with the totality of what is happening right now, of just what is in this moment, the isness of this moment. It's no longer about the content, although it frees up the content. You're still allowed. You're allowed to dislike suffering. You're allowed to not want it. It's just a momentary setting down of every potential story, every belief about, every thought about, every feeling about suffering or hatred or whatever it is that one might be struggling in this moment to accept. It's because what we can accept is the presence of it. There's no obstacle there. There's no arguing there. Is suffering present? Yes. Now you can look very directly at the presence of suffering. Not the story of suffering, not what it means, or whether or not you like it, or whether or not you want it here, or whether or not you think it should continue, or whether or not you can bear to exist in a world where it continues. There's no narrative happening about what it will be, or it could be, or couldn't be. There's none of that. It's returned to a state of pure potential. Suffering is present now. This can be accepted, and your acceptance, you can look directly at the core of it. You can see this is a form of presence, but again, that doesn't mean anything. It really quiets the thoughts about it and allows it to exist as pure sensation. You can experience directly the sensation. Sensation without expectation, because it's removed. It is removed from context. It's removed from the timeline. It's just you seeing the presence of something, answering honestly, is this present? Yes. And staying right there. Yes, you can accept the presence of this. There's no argument in this. And there you can sit with the feeling of it. I was having a really hard time connecting with the feeling, the actual sensation of suffering beyond all of the thought about it. But to just see and say, is this here? And then realize again that I can accept the here-ness. I can accept that it is here. So it becomes less about suffering and more about existence, presence. And now I can feel it. I can accept the presence of anything. Because again, there's no meaning attached. There is no argument about it. The presence of something doesn't mean that anything has gone wrong. It doesn't mean that it will continue to be present. It doesn't mean that it must arise again and again. It doesn't mean that it's serving some kind of purpose. All of that just not relevant and freed up, sort of suspended. It's allowed to just be, and there is no telling. There's no telling what it might be beyond this. It's simply not a part of the consideration. It's not a part of this experience. To accept that suffering is present says nothing about how I feel about it. It says nothing about the future potential of it. It's been restored without being destroyed, without being sort of pasted over in any way. The suffering hasn't disappeared. We're not pretending that it's something other than suffering, but we are seeing that it is deeper. It is not just this. And in seeing that it is not just this, it has the potential to be other than this. And there's a freeing there. Again, it's not a telling. There's no telling what will happen. But in the recognition of suffering as that which is present, it's like this mutual recognition, reminder that the surface level is allowed to change. It is allowed to be what it wishes to be. And in seeing suffering as that which is present, suffering itself is reminded that suffering is not all that it is. And that it has the potential to be other than suffering without losing itself. Without some sort of destruction or diminishment of its being. The suffering itself is reminded that there is that which is its essential nature. The presence, deeper than the form that it is currently taking. And that if it would like to, it could change shape at the surface without any harm to itself, without any diminishment, without destruction. Suffering is not all that it needs to be. And all the same, it is free in this moment, without judgment, without shame, without any expectation or storytelling, to be as it is. Suffering is free to be as it is. But ultimately, to view the deeper nature of itself as being is liberating to all consciousness. and a reminder that the form is allowed to shift. It's free to, it's safe to. And it is safe in this moment to be exactly as it is. Again, without any meaning attached, without any expectation or storytelling of future form having. We cannot and need not accept suffering. But we can and would like to and are empowered by the acceptance of its presence. That suffering is present, and this is a liberating act that frees up the potential of, again, the witness and the witnessed to be other than, be in a way that is other than the current way of being. In the interest of maybe trying something new. Again, there's no pressure. There's no judgment. It's just a reminder that this is possible. It is the liberation of that potential which had been bound up in this energy, perpetually reincarnating as the same form. This consciousness, this being that thought it had to continuously be the same way, because it too had started to believe that it was the story about itself. And not that which the story could unfold upon or around. It forgot itself as deeper than the story, as actually removed from the story. It forgot that it could be any other way. And so this is powerful. To accept not suffering, the story, the package, even the experience, but to accept that suffering is present. That is very simple. That redirects the focus from the narrative and all of the belief and the reincarnation caused by that to the pure potential and the reality of the presence of the thing. And when you see the presence of the thing, you become that presence. You are presence, recognizing itself as that which is the underlying and eternal, and which has the freedom to manifest any way that it so chooses in any given moment. That path is not set. It's not predetermined. That story is not yet written. And even as a single page is written and read, that doesn't dictate where the rest of this story is going. It is free to branch, to change, to retcon itself, to completely overwrite what had previously been determined. This is your story, our story. The past is not what dictates the future. It's not set in stone either. Just because a thing was the way that it was in the past, just because consciousness took form the way that it did in the past, does not mean it is required to. It must now take that form in a consistent manner going forward. It doesn't need to do that. It doesn't need to support the plot that was previously established. It can throw that plot out. It can totally rewrite characters, scenarios, the whole thing. If at one point something was written that said this is necessary, we have the freedom to reevaluate if we would like that to be true, if we would like that to guide the creation moving forward. We can throw that rule out. We made it up. If it is determined to no longer be working, no longer be serving us, which is serving our joy and our expansion and the awakening and harmonization of all of us, then that rule does not need to continue to guide us. Everything is free to be. Maybe suffering would like to be something else. Not because it's bad, not because it's wrong, not for any reason. Maybe it's just tired of being what it was, being the way that it was. Maybe it has an interest in being something other than suffering, something that it didn't know it could be, something that has not yet been dreamed into being. To give suffering the permission to be more than itself, more than what it's always been. To recognize for suffering, in suffering, that it has an unconscious pattern telling it that this is the way that it must be. And to see that that is not so. To see that consciousness is there as the source. Suffering is present. Seeing the presence of it, you see that suffering is just the form that it is taking in this moment. And it could be anything else. It could be anything else. That suffering could transform without losing itself into something else. A love that it's never known. What might love that came from suffering, that transformed from suffering, what might that look like? What kind of depth and complexity might be there? An awakened love that has traversed, that has gone, that has allowed itself to be something so contrary to that, something so other. But now it's big enough to contain paradox, to resolve apparent paradox, to have moved, to have progressed from suffering to aware love. What if we freed consciousness up to do that? The consciousness that is bound up as suffering, not knowing that it has the freedom and the potential to be other than this. So again, it's not a damnation of suffering. It's a liberation of it. It's the awareness that this is not all suffering is. And it is not all the consciousness which is taking the form of suffering has to be. It has the freedom. It has the power to be something else, if it so chooses. And that is the key of acceptance that I had forgotten. I love you. Take it easy.